Welcome to the PROUST Questionnaire.
35 questions giving us insight into what makes creative people tick.
Today we have another local celebrity, Maira Kalman, who's a painter, an artist, and who also lives actually in the Greenwich Village area of New York City.
That's right. And she's a great friend of mine. Maira Kalman, I first got to know her work before I became friends with her in the neighborhood for her cartoon work for The New Yorker. She has such a recognizable style, a very kind of charming, whimsical visual style, has written countless children's books and books for adults. I believe that she got her start, one of the things that began her career was when she illustrated a children's book with the lead singer of the Talking Heads, David Byrne, called Stay Up Late, which was related to the Talking Heads song, a big hit when you and I were young and fancy-free, called Stay Up Late, and she's kind of pursued that. I'm sorry, I feel like now let's cut all that because that's not helpful. What do we do?
But she's been doing collaborative work with so many people, and I think part of her strength is that she's actually kind of gone beyond different genres. So she's an illustrator, she's a painter, she writes books, she makes books, she's performed in opera, she's done stage design, set design. So she's really kind of all over the place in the best possible sense of that word.
Yeah, no, she's a Renaissance woman, and it feels like there's nothing that she can't do, which is incredibly envy-inspiring on the one hand, and on the other hand, it's just always a delight to be around her because she's always thinking about something new, she's always talking about something new. I recently started, at her recommendation, studying with her Tai Chi instructor here in downtown New York, and she explained to me why she had started Tai Chi, which is, I don't want to fall down in the street. I fell down in the street and hurt my arm recently, and I just don't want to fall down in the street again. And so I love that she's doing Tai Chi, and she's gotten me into it, which is great.
And the range of books, we'll put them on our website too, but it's just amazing. She's done everything from the life of Thomas Jefferson to sort of fireboats in the city to sort of just parts of your daily existence. So just a huge amount of material, and incredibly productive.
Incredibly productive. And my most favorite recent show of hers, a few years ago, she recreated first in a gallery downtown and then at the Metropolitan Museum of Art, her mother's closet from when she was growing up, called Sarah Berman's Closet. And it was an incredibly moving thing to see, this kind of evocative childhood recreation, and to have somebody with that kind of outlook on the PROUST questionnaire in particular is really lovely. I should add that one of the many reasons I love Maira is that, like me, she's a huge PROUST lover. She is a great PROUST lover. She was in a PROUST reading group and with a bunch of friends in New York, where I guess they just finally finished the whole book maybe last year, and I think they'd taken almost 10 years to read the whole thing, but she really has a great appreciation for Proust and for great literature, so she's fun to talk to for that reason as well.
We're excited to have her on the show.
Good morning, Maira. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you very much. Happy to be here.
Yes, Maira, it's nice. I ran into you earlier today on the street. Beautiful fall day in New York, and you are a lover of Proust.
So, very much so.
Very much so, I know.
To an extreme degree.
To an extreme degree. Okay,
she's in good company.
So we'll start you out right away on this questionnaire.
Yes. All right. So question number one, Maira, what is your perfect idea of happiness, or your idea of perfect happiness?
Oh my God. When I used to say to my mother, I just want to be happy, she would say, what's happiness? So right away we were in trouble, with the whole idea. But I think my perfect idea of happiness is to be doing something, work. Like they say, work is more fun than fun. And so I like to work on something, and my mind is running to cleaning something. So this is kind of a very particular happiness. I think that working and walking are two things that I love, and there are probably other things like food and music. So clearly I don't know.
Yeah.
Clearly I have no idea.
But
what
working,
makes me happy.
And walking, I like kind of together. Yeah. Do they inform each other? Like you told us that you have a long walk 3 days a week.
Yeah.
Does the walking kind of get you in a working flow state or a cleaning state?
The walking, what walking does is it empties your brain, and I think that the only way to live life, if you're going to have any ideas at all, is to have an empty brain, and I relish that and admire myself when I have it, which is not all the time. So the walking and the looking and the just kind of letting your brain go free, that's the perfect way to start to do something.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I love that. Jean-Jacques Rousseau wrote this whole essay toward the end of his life called the Reveries of a Solitary Walker. And because you're also a francophone and a great reader, I'll make sure to send it to you after this. But I think that was one of his ideas, that basically thinking can only come productively through getting outside, walking around, not just being cooped up in a study or a studio.
And not trying to think.
And Aristotle started his school, not Plato's academy, that's called the Peripatetic Academy ultimately, which is the word peripatetic comes from that for us today.
Okay.
Walking around.
And walking was a way of leading to thinking and reflection.
All right, I've learned more already in like 6 minutes. I'm not leaving you too.
We're just using two big names.
No, but we're using three because we have Aristotle, Rousseau, and Maira Kalman,
right.
Which I think is we can all go home now. All right, Maira, on a totally different tack, what is your greatest fear?
Death, probably.
Okay.
That might be a fear that I have, let's say. But I think that and probably tied to that is the inability to do what I wanted, the inability to work, and the inability to which looms also. You think, when will this? Because things are pretty good, actually.
Yeah.
And then I think, when is this going to end?
Right. The other shoe.
Some kind of fantastic apocalypse of something.
Yeah.
But I think that's linked to death.
That seems reasonable.
Maira, what is the trait you most deplore in yourself?
Look at the silence.
Yeah.
That's really the trait I most deplore. I went for a walk. I feel so good about myself. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. Good. All right, we'll take it, Maira.
We'll take it.
I'm probably later on I'm going to send you 20 things I despise about myself. Well, because self-loathing is a constant. So I don't even single out a trait. It's just like the whole of me is horrible.
I'm glad that the walking.
True, of course.
No.
So yes, the walking dispels that, and now I'm like, oh my God, I'm so nice.
Right. Is the self-loathing? Would you say? Because I think we've had other interviewees say this to us in a different way. But is the self-loathing also something that fuels the work, or does the self-loathing get in the way of the work?
I think both. I think both of those can happen, and as you get older, you learn how to handle it.
Yeah.
That it used to be self-loathing just annihilated things. But I mean, I'm not easily stopped from working, though I do take spins around, away from the studio. But that sense of maybe going down and kind of feeling wretched, because then there's a resurrection, and that always feels pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah.
What is the trait you most deplore in others?
Lying.
Listening to you, Maira, and just seeing your facial reactions to these questions, I'm thinking that maybe Uli and I need to scramble the order of the original Proust questionnaire, because starting out with happiness is great, but then fear, deplore, is sort of a rough sequence. That's how he did it.
Yeah.
But also, again, he didn't write it, so...
Proust got through it at 15, so I think we got good.
That's right.
You do as a teenager.
Oh, wait, I think, Uli, you've got another one.
What living person do you most admire?
Oh my God, everybody I admire is dead.
Oh.
Okay.
No, wait, there are people who I admire, definitely who I admire.
Who are still alive?
Who are still alive.
They're not.
Did all your friends just come to mind, all the people who are with you, actually?
I admire my children the most,
Yeah.
I think.
What is your greatest extravagance?
Not working and just taking time and using time and wasting time, and I wish the extravagance was like buying incredible clothing and looking fantastic, but that's gone.
She does, listeners.
So, not at all.
Look fantastic. I'm not sure about the clothing.
But I think that's my extravagance of taking my time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What is your current state of mind right now?
Happy as a clam, as I say, for a few more hours.
Yes. Great.
Yeah, we're lucky we got
Great.
you now.
Yes, exactly.
What do you consider the most overrated virtue? And we think this means kind of overrated by society, or maybe overrated by religion, or overrated by people you know. But what quality do you think is not as great as we would be told to believe?
Success.
Success in what sense?
In the societal sense, in the being successful in your work, making money, that's a sticky wicket.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
On what occasion, Myra, do you lie? Since lying is the one
Since
thing
lying-
you
You know
don't
what's
like in
funny?
other people.
Yeah.
I think I probably lie 50 times a day, as I think everybody does. I think that you couldn't survive without lying, from the small things to big things, to lying to yourself about things that are obvious to other people. So I lie constantly, but I don't deplore that. No, I do. I go back. I wish that it's possible not to lie, but I just don't think it's possible. And another thing that my mother said is, if everybody said what they were thinking, nobody would be speaking to anybody.
Yeah. That's almost
Which is
certainly
interesting.
True. Yeah.
I mean, why? Why do we? Why are we hiding the truth and only speaking? Not only, but you know.
Right.
Anyway.
Why do we have to exist at this level of kind of convenient or expedient lies?
And that's what's so interesting about getting older and just saying, I don't care anymore. Now I'm going to tell you. You know, that the cliche of older people just saying whatever they think,
Right.
whatever, let it be.
Yeah.
That's kind of fabulous.
Yeah.
You don't have to second guess yourself as much.
Yeah, that's right. How many lies would you say you've already told this morning? You've been up since at least 7:15.
I've been up since 6.
Okay.
So that's an extra hour and a quarter.
4.5 hours.
A few.
Okay.
Do you need to know what they are? I won't tell you.
No. All right, in case they involve us.
We don't even
And-
know if you're telling us the truth.
Yeah.
It's one of those
Right. Now
dilemmas.
Yeah, the
Philosophical
liar's
dilemmas.
dilemma.
Right, exactly.
Uli, this is
What
you
do
also.
This is a strange question. What do you most dislike about your appearance?
Oh my God, everything.
Oh,
Are you kidding?
we get that answer.
Of
Isaac was here
course.
not long ago, and obviously, similarly.
Yeah. Where do I begin?
Oh.
No, don't get me started.
Really. Which living person, gosh, reading these today
What
for
is
some
it?
reason in your happy post-walk mode, I'm just struck by how negative these all are. Which living person, Myra, do you most
hate?
despise? Or are they all dead too?
Yeah. Well, you know, we could look at the president of
Right.
this country and say that's an obvious choice.
There you go. Yeah.
We'll leave it at that.
That's that, yeah.
What is the quality you most like in a man? And we've talked about this a bit. This is a very binary set of questions, which is probably in our century no longer the only option. But this is the question that Proust answered. What is the quality you most like in a man?
Well, can I say 2 qualities?
Sure.
Kindness and humor.
Mm-hmm.
And intelligence.
So
3 qualities, right?
Yeah. Based on what I know of the men in your life, that seems like you've managed to find that in some good guys. What is the quality, and this is why we think the question is sounds a little bit outdated because it's so gendered. What is the quality you most like in a woman?
Independence.
Okay. Which words or phrases do you most overuse?
I just was working on a project with a woman, and she said, and I said, we have to make a lot of decisions, and I said, the question is, and she said, you say the question is all the time, and I said, I do not. And then, of course, I was listening to myself, and I was saying it every other minute.
Right.
The question is, should it be a black curtain or a blue curtain? So I don't know. So now I'm self-conscious. But the question is, I thought it was a very nice way of collaborating.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm not dictating that it's going to be that color or that thing. We're discussing it.
Did she mean it in that way when she pointed that out to you?
I don't know. I think I was getting on her nerves.
And then you couldn't ask the question because she just complained about the questioning. Well, no, and that, Myra, that's so interesting. Before we started recording this morning, you were talking about having this meeting about creativity with 5 shrinks. And can you say something again about, because I thought it was so interesting, the sort of the distinction between certainty and possibility that they raised? Because it seems like the question is related to the latter frame of mind, right?
Right.
That you're not postulating a truth.
Yes, yeah, that you don't have a certain, so it's not, it isn't, so I had a wonderful meeting with 5 therapists who I wish were with me all the time, or I could see them every day. 5 seems like a good number to help you through the day. But they were talking about the idea that the certainty excludes possibility, that once you have a fixed idea about something, then you're locked in. There's no conversation, there's no moving. And they use the example, if I don't think you like me, then everything that you say and every facial expression that you have confirms my idea that you don't like me, which actually may be true. But on the other hand, so if you have a more open feeling about things as opposed to such a definitive, it's not about not being certain about what you want to do and exploring that, but there's a flexibility about it and a certain openness. So.
Yeah. No, so it's, the question is, in that sense, is a much more productive phrase, even if you're using it a lot, than like the fact is.
Yeah.
The fact is the curtain has to be black. Shutting it down. That's really interesting.
Maira, what or who is the greatest love of your life?
Well, the greatest loves of my life are my husband and my children, and now my grandchildren.
Yeah.
That's with no question. And my mother, and my mother.
Mm-hmm.
How many grandchildren are there now?
2, just 2.
When and where were you happiest? Do you have a memory or a moment or point in time?
I think of the future. I think of myself in a garden in Chatsworth, and I'm thinking, I'm going to be really happy there soon.
Real? In Chatsworth?
Nice. That's my goal.
Is that, they have artists, Rachel Feinstein just did a residency there. Are you
kidding?
Some kind of installation there, yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, I know the heir to Chatsworth,
okay,
if he's listening, the wonderful William Burlington,
yeah,
who I was a maid for him at Lismore Castle, my stint as a maid.
Yes.
And I want to go back to Chatsworth is the kind of the golden arc.
Yeah.
So what's a nice thing about that for me is that I'm thinking about the future, the possibility of happiness, and how palpable that feels.
Right.
Rather than, there are many, many times I was happy in the past, though I can't recall any now. My wedding, I was really unhappy at my wedding party.
Oh, I think that happens a lot, right?
I was overwhelmed.
Yeah.
Oh, too many expectations, too many things.
Too much, too many people.
Yeah.
Too big, too fast, too something.
And you can't talk to anyone, even though they're all there for you.
They're all there for you, and then I don't like being the center in that way.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Which talent would you most like to have?
I feel like I have the talents that I want.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we would.
Though, maybe I could be a better dancer for performing.
But that's a great answer, actually.
Mm-hmm. If you could change one thing about yourself, what would it be?
My height.
Oh, you want to be taller or shorter?
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, no, I want to be
Why is that
taller,
funny?
right? That's funny because it's plausible.
Sure.
To me, it's so obvious. Of course, I want to be taller.
Okay.
It seems like one of those difficult fairy tale questions, though, because you want to specify pretty clearly how tall you want to be.
That's true.
Or like
who
the
knows?
genie
I would be
will
7 feet or 8
knows?
feet.
And
Right.
Yeah.
Or like 2 inches.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm very tall, and I love being my height. But I do know somebody, a teenager who's much taller than I am, and I think it's very hard on him.
Yeah.
Very hard on him, and people always say, "Oh," and he constantly has to explain himself to people.
Yeah.
And it's not
They
what he wants to really talk
reference,
about.
right?
They talk about his body all the time.
Yeah.
And in some
a
ways,
way
there's
that-
a weird, uncomfortable, especially when you're 17 years old. It's
Yeah.
hard. So in some ways, like the question should be, what do you want to be, but be precise. You know? Like, don't wish for any.
My first husband was 6'6.5", and apparently giantism officially starts at 6'7". Oh. And he, like Uli, he was had a very trim build, but unlike Uli, he had a really disproportionately large head. And it was, again, one of those things and really thick hair, and so it was kind of like a really, really tall lollipop. And he also, people would comment on it all the time in a way that we would no longer get away with, I think, commenting on a woman's body just matter-of-factly with people.
Right.
But his biggest trauma from his teenage years was he overheard one of his professors saying about him, yeah, he's tall but smart.
How is he now, by the way?
Luckily for me, I don't see him anymore. He's not seeing him as one of my ideas of perfect happiness. But to the extent that I have any fellow feeling or compassion for him, it probably does revolve around that issue because I grew up also feeling too tall. But somehow he's tall but smart. Haunts me as a
terrible thing.
question.
I hope people don't say this about me.
That I know, or even me, yeah, and I'm shorter than Uli. But so, Maira, all that, just say careful what you wish for. What do you consider your greatest achievement?
Raising sane children, without question.
Yeah.
I mean, I can be happy about my work, of course, but I think it's a whole different story to have children.
A bigger achievement.
Definitely.
If you were to die and come back as a person or a thing, what would it be?
You know that once I saw when I was seeing a therapist, my only one-to-one,
okay.
And I said to him, if I die, and he said, excuse me, when you die. And I was like, oh my God, that resonated for me. So I'm sorry, when you start the question...
If you were to die.
If you were...
when you die, if you could come back.
Right. What would I come back
What
as?
kind of therapist would tell you such a truth? That's one of the things we don't want to know.
I should have found a lying therapist.
I know.
No.
Yeah.
He was
one of the
prone
5
to the
today.
truth, right?
Yeah.
Who would I want to come back as?
Or what?
Or what?
Could be inanimate or animate.
Nothing.
Really?
I don't want to come back. Is that an option?
Totally.
Yeah, it's completely an option. Yeah.
Has anybody ever said they don't want to come back?
No. That's why
everybody else is floating around in some manifestation.
And we get a lot of nature. I'm done. We get a lot of nature things.
We do.
Like I'd like to be a tree. We had one who wanted to be the ocean.
Yes.
Remember that guy?
That's so wet.
Nothing seems drier somehow. Where, and maybe we've already gotten the answer with Chatsworth, but maybe there's more than one answer to this question. Where, Maira, would you most like to live?
Definitely Italy, definitely England, definitely Japan. So I'm going to split my living among some places, and definitely New York.
Okay, so 4.
Yeah.
I guess if you came back as nothing can be in all 4 of those places.
Of course.
Right? Yeah. Let's see. She cheated the genie.
What is your most treasured possession?
You know what's really funny? I have a piano, which I used to play the piano, and I never played, and it's the first thing that comes to mind. So nice. I think, what is that? But because then I would say my books, and I have a really large library, and I said those are my treasured possessions. But somehow the piano, the associations, I think, with being a child and taking lessons and music, how important music is to me. So I'm going to stick with my piano.
Yeah. But you don't play right now?
Once in a while I sit down and I play a little bit. And then I say, well, good.
Good. Still have my piano. And is it that particular piano is important to you? Or
no, I mean, no.
It wasn't your childhood piano?
It wasn't my childhood piano. I have a very similar one. I had an upright, a studio Sommer upright. And it was a beautiful and wonderful piano. And it just represented a lot of different things to me.
Yeah.
What do you regard as the lowest depth of misery?
Well, that happens pretty often. But though it's hard to gauge, like what is the lowest depth of misery? Not feeling loved.
Yeah. Yeah, we haven't had that answer either, and it's a really good one. Right, this is another one of those questions that Uli and I go back and forth on, and I want to consult the original French to see how this was phrased, but the actual question is, what is your favorite occupation? But Uli and I kind of construe that to mean what would be your favorite occupation if you didn't have the occupation you have now. So feel free to answer the question in either of those directions or both.
I have the occupation that I have more than I could ever imagine of the occupation that I want. And I would like it to continue in a way that's delightful and strange with all of the sadness and the confusion. And I would like to be peripatetic. And I would like to not know things, and so I think it's all there.
Right. what is your most marked characteristic? And we think that means, what characteristic of yours do you think is what people see the first or the most prominently when they encounter you?
Humor.
Humor, yeah.
What do you most value in your friends?
Intelligence.
Really? No dumb friends. It's a high bar.
Yeah. I think Isaac told us that above all, what he didn't want in friends is people who are boring.
Right.
It's like, if you're
Yes,
boring me,
yeah,
you're wasting my
yeah.
time.
Which made Caroline and me, of course, feel instantly thinking, are we up to the level of...
I know, we're probably being boring.
You know, are
and
we
now
boring?
we're wondering,
Are we
are we being intelligent?
Right,
No.
Exactly, it's hard.
All right, but here's a
I don't
chance.
think you have to worry.
Well, here's a chance for us to get on a more positive track again. And Myra, knowing something a little bit about some of your literary loves and proclivities, I'm excited to get to ask you this question. Who are your favorite writers?
Not in the particular order, but Nabokov, Proust, Sebald.
Oh, Sebald, too.
Oh, really?
Yeah. All of Sebald or particular books of...
The Emigrants,
Yeah.
Austerlitz, probably all of Sebald, all of his persona,
Mm-hmm.
and then probably there are some that I like more than others, but a lot of them are based on walking and on finding yourself. How did I get here? You know, he goes on tangents that are so sublime you can't even. I never figure out, and I try to keep track.
Yeah.
Maybe I fall asleep a few times. I don't know, but I can't. I can't believe where he's taken us.
Yeah.
And the depths of the absurd world and the sad world and the beautiful world. So yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting. All three writers kind of map the world via the imagination, but have these very concrete worlds, but there's this kind of strong dimension of that you imagine the world, and that way of perceiving the world is what the world is to you.
Yeah.
Because the other writers who give you whole worlds...
Like, Balzac or Dickens or...
Right, exactly.
Eliot,
full of so
George.
many details, or Hugo or something with characters that are so vivid they kind of seem to live on their own without you even imagining them. But these are very much driven by the power of the imagination. And some of the stories seem to be propelled by that more than by plot in a way.
Right. Plot is the least interesting thing
Right.
to me.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
I
Well,
do like plot sometimes.
I think, but anybody who loves Proust has to...
Meander.
The plot is not the thing. And Nabokov, do you have favorites from his
Speak Memory
opus? Oh,
is
yeah.
my favorite
That's a
of
really good
his.
one.
It's his memoir, and one of the greatest books, for me ever. And of course Lolita and Ada.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you find Lolita harder to read now in this sort of it's 2019? We live through different sort of. I think we live in a different sensibility today. Do I write a book about fascination with a teenage girl by an adult man? It was a scandal in a way when it came out. It was also celebrated as a scandal.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if today it would be celebrated as a scandal or it would be just a scandal.
Right, just a scandal. I don't know. I mean, I thought about that because I read it not that long ago. I reread it not.
Yeah,
long
I haven't reread
ago.
it since all of the Me Too.
And it's such an incredibly beautiful book. It's hard, it's. I think it's a complicated. It's a duality. Yes, it's a problem, and yes, it's a beautiful book. So you have to kind of navigate that.
I remember vividly one of my rowing mates at the University of California. We were in San Diego in a van, and he could recite the first two paragraphs of Lolita, and he said it's his favorite book. And I remember this very well. And I remember my sister telling me a year later that this is the most obscene book she's read, and it shouldn't be read by anybody.
Oh.
And not it should be banned, but it shouldn't be read. So I was 21 years old and had two opinions that I actually valued from people who said either someone who probably had not read that many books, this guy was not in literary studies, and he could recite the first two paragraphs.
Wow.
And my sister,
Life,
who read a lot of
Lines.
books, and said, exactly, Life of my Life.
Lolita.
Yeah, Lolita. I mean, just the beginning. Lolita.
Lolita, yeah.
So, and he said that it was not. He was, and he said these are wretched characters.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Interesting. It's an interesting question, though, I think, how it would... and I wonder whether it's even assigned in schools today.
Yeah.
Whether it's something you would assign to a classroom of students today, and how it would be read.
Yeah, this is something Willie and I talk a lot about being professors, the way that the intellectual and cultural climate has changed just since we've been professors for almost 20 years now. The idea that one has to sort of contextualize or frame or apologize for the works one is teaching. It's a change that I don't think either of us would have anticipated when we started out. But I mean, I would hate a world where people didn't get to read Lolita in college.
I think you're right. I do think, though, there were apologies, and then, of course, the canon, the reading list was formed and with other assumptions. I'm just curious whether the assumptions today are the wrong ones or the right ones, and whether Lolita has always been defended on its literary merits, right? Say, oh, we can dismiss the fact that it's sort of objectionable content because it's elevated. So that's actually the big question here, and I think it's actually a really good conversation to have. What is art supposed to do? You know, how does it intersect with, you know, life for people? And I can see why someone would say, I don't want to read this book.
Oh, yeah.
And that's the other
Absolutely.
option to say, is it a compulsory reading or is it a choice? Yeah. What is your hero in fiction, or we think Proust wouldn't have been able to answer this, in film?
Or TV.
Imaginary character, yeah.
Oh, that's really funny. Again, maybe not the top in the world, but I think Danny Kaye comes to mind. And, you know, The Secret Life of Walter Mitty, and The Court Jester, and there are 100 other people that will come to mind in a few minutes, but something about his fantastic humor and music and the way he looked and the inventiveness of his energy. I just love Danny Kaye.
Oh, that's so great. Which historical figure do you most identify with?
Abraham Lincoln.
Really?
No, I'm not kidding.
Yeah.
I mean, it's interesting to have these questions because you can ponder for a few hours or just come up with something.
Yeah, sure.
Right.
And the first thing that comes to mind is Abraham Lincoln.
That is so great.
I feel a great
Why?
affinity with him.
Yeah.
And even though he had to handle the Civil War, and I don't think I could have handled it.
Well, you don't know until you try.
Right, exactly.
3 walks a week, and you would
the night
have
is young.
sorted it out.
But I from the very, and I've done a lot of writing about him and painting about him for adults and for children, and I think that his humanism is something so extraordinary, and that I think, and his intelligence, and I think, well, I would like to be Abraham Lincoln, and I always thought that I would be married to him, and that married Todd Lincoln, he would have been happier with me.
Yeah, that was not a super happy marriage, right?
Actually, the opinions are divided.
Okay.
I think that they may have been very much in love, and
good.
she was just driven mad by what happened to her.
Sure.
Which
The children,
and him.
Yeah.
I mean,
my God, yeah.
but I mean, even the children beforehand. So.
And she has a very strange life after the
Yes.
death, and the financial problems she has and all that. It's quite interesting, actually.
Right, and how the son has it, and the son institutionalizes her for a while, so he can get control of the.
Oh, God.
But to protect her ostensibly, so.
It's interesting, yeah.
All right, so Abraham Lincoln before the Troubles.
Or even during the Troubles.
Even during the Troubles. But,
what are your heroes in real life?
or who?
Didn't we have that question? Did we have that question
Who are your
before?
heroes? Who are your heroes in real
Who are my
life? No, we
heroes?
had.
We had whom do you most admire?
Who are your heroes in
But
real
like
life?
people, you know, like firefighters,
Oh,
foreign aid workers,
right.
marine biologists.
You know, I basically, heroes to me are very much everybody who gets up in the morning and does anything. I think everybody is completely heroic.
Just because the mere act of getting out of bed and doing something.
It's a miracle.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's a miracle. I wish I felt that way, that it's heroic. That's funny. What are your favorite names?
Names of people?
Yeah,
I'm
names
going to
you
go
like.
with Olive and Esme. Esme is they're the granddaughters.
Sweet. That's nice.
Those are both pretty. Were either of those names that were somehow in the family before, or just
Not at all. They
Yeah.
came from somewhere. They came from the air.
they came
They
because
came from Salinger. I don't know.
Yeah,
Esme,
Esme, yeah.
yeah.
at least you don't have one named Squalor.
Yeah.
What is it yet? What is it that you most dislike?
Being bored.
Being bored. Okay.
What is your greatest regret?
No regrets.
Already knowing that you're not looking forward to dying, I will nevertheless ask you, how would you like to die?
Oh, that's a very good
you
question.
have to, right?
Yeah, you have to.
Yeah, you
It's
have to.
inevitable.
Well, that's what your therapist claimed.
Right.
I always say to my students, as far as we know.
Right.
As far as we
The question
know.
is, yeah.
As far as we know, we don't know.
The question is, yeah.
It's based on what? Evidence of other people?
Yeah. The question is, if you had to die, how would you like to die?
I'm not going to say skiing because that doesn't make any sense, but I would like to die. I've always wanted to die skiing. I would like to have a very short illness where I could tell everybody how much I love them, my kids, and tell them where the money, where the bank accounts are.
Yeah. Oh, the gold ingots hidden
exactly,
in the floorboards.
You know,
Yeah.
And there'll be music playing.
Mm-hmm.
I say this for my funeral. Ombra My Food, the Handel from Cersei's, I want that played. But maybe that'll be playing while I'm gently dying in a beautiful nightgown.
In a garden.
A friend of mine...
Near the sea.
Near the sea. Okay.
A friend of mine recently died, and she was very old and had been a bit sick for a while, but not terribly so. And I was with her the day before she died, and the last words that she spoke were... because her son and another friend were having an argument while she seemed to be lying unconscious about the kind of sheets that she had. She had these beautiful ironed Porto sheets, and this other friend of mine and the woman who was dying said, oh, well, you know, she would have been very happy to have satin sheets. And the son said, no, satin sheets are terrible. And my friend regained consciousness long enough to say, satin sheets are divine.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm surprised. I thought her last words would be, of course I hate satin sheets.
Yeah, no. And again, Porto, as far as I know, doesn't make satin sheets, but...
I would imagine they don't.
She weighed in, though. Yeah.
She weighed in.
Contradicted her son.
She contradicted her son.
Especially her last...
Take that.
gift to her son
Her
is
gift
you're
to
wrong.
If only we could all impart that to
you
the...
never knew what I really liked.
Yeah.
What is your motto?
Oh, it's really funny because we have a family motto, which is every man for himself.
Oh, wow.
Which we made up a few years ago as the three of us, as my daughter Lulu and my son Alex and I were somewhere. And maybe we're in India, and across the street, it's like, everybody's on their own. And so after that, we were sitting having some ginger drink and saying, I think our family motto is every man for himself. And the other one is suspect everyone. So, of course... Are those two really good mottos?
That's like the plot line of Casablanca or something like that.
Yeah, that's true.
Right.
Yeah.
And then there must be something. There must be another one. Then there's a wonderful poster that somebody gave me, which is, not everything will be okay, but some things will. Oh. Which puts it in a very nice syntax. So I'm giving you three. That there are probably more.
Those are all, yeah.
I like that.
In terms of, but I'm just liking the family coat of arms, with the Latin banner above it saying every man for himself in Latin or Old French or something. Okay, this is the one question, this is our last question, and this is the one question that Uli and I have felt emboldened to add to the original gospel of the Proust questionnaire. And it's because we'd really like to know from the people who come and talk to us, and you were so thrilled you could do this for us. We really want to know what you think about this. Who would you most like to see answering the questions to this podcast, to this questionnaire? And ideally it's a person who's alive, because maybe you'll give us an idea for someone else to contact. I mean, Abraham Lincoln, we gathered that would be interesting, but we can't get him.
We could do a Ouija board session.
Yeah, we could try a psychic. But yeah, people alive today, whom would you most like to hear answering these questions?
I think, I don't know the name of the person, but it would be a philosopher. And it would be a philosopher it would be a Stoic.
Oh.
Stoic philosopher. I don't know what that means.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of everything. Not everything will be all right, but some things will. A little bit, right? A Stoic philosopher. I wonder whether they have
Stoic philosophers today. I'm trying to think of the philosophers I know.
Well, I mean, the Dalai Lama.
Maybe the Dalai Lama, right?
All right. Well, Maira, in your honor, we're going to ask the Dalai Lama to appear. Thank you again so much for being here.
Thank
we
you.
Loved getting to talk to you.
That was
Yes,
great.
thank
That
you,
was a lot
Maira,
of
for
fun.
joining us today.